camp and yeshiva every single Motzei Shabbos without fail. The minhag by many people is that only the Mavdil makes the brachas, Gofen, Besamim, and Ner. Well, the listeners are yaitza with his bracha. A common scenario when you have a big oilam in a camp or yeshiva, that not everybody can get the Besamim during the Havdalah, because it's a big oilam and just a few jars of Besamim. So the question is, a bacha gets the Besamim after Havdalah. Does he make a new bracha on the Besamim? His minhag is not to make a new bracha, but now he got it so late, does the bracha carry on to after Havdalah? It seemed like a pretty long time that the bracha should continue. But then again, every Havdalah, there's a hefsek between the gofen and the drinking. So if you think about it, we'll soon see other shilas, but the crux of the issue is that the bracha of Havdalah is unusual. As we know, the ikka of Havdalah is hamavdil ben kodesh l'chayil. But then again, you have a gofen, you have besamim, moira yo'esh, in between. When does it become a hefsek? When is it not a hefsek? So sit back and enjoy. Let's learn the sugya. There's no passion. We wonder, what's the shayla? If it's part of a Havdalah, whether it's Gofen, Besamim, or Ner, so you have to hear it. How could you think that someone that came to Havdalah late, he missed the Gofen, he's Yaitza, without hearing a Gofen? How could he be Yaitza without a Gofen? Isn't a Gofen part of Havdalah? We know the Gemara says in Brachas Lamed Gimel, they were masakin at Takanas Rabbanan, that you have to say Havdalah Lakos, Brachas Lamed Gimel. I should mention, actually, besides the chiyuv of Havdalah Lakos, it's a skula, and this is a legitimate skula. The Gemara says a chulin that with chesed med beis, if someone's mavel al hayayin and mitzvah Shabbos, havyan leibanim zecharim, and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi added, he not only zeichet to have sons, but banim haruyim lahira, children that will be zeichet to become bali hayra. And the Gemara learns that from a pasuk, because it says in the pasuk lahavdil ulahayrais, that the person could paskin unless he drinks wine that he can't paskin. And the next pasuk is isha kizas zriya v'yolda zacha. So if someone is careful to drink wine by Havdalah, he's zeichet the banim zecharim, that would be paiskin. I'll tell you a story I know personally. There's a Gevir in America who for many years had a number of daughters, never had a son. And he wanted very much a ben zach, so he went to Reb Chaim Kanievsky, and Chaim asked him, do you make Havdalah on wine? He goes, no, I make on grape juice. He goes, that's your problem. If you make on wine, you'll have a son. A year later, after he made Havdalah on wine, he had a ben zach. So he's so excited, he called Reb Chaim's Gabbai, and he says, please tell Reb Chaim in my name that if he comes to America and he's the sandik for my child, besides, of course, I'll fly him in, I'll give him a blank check for $1 million. He could do what he wants. So Reb Chaim's immediate response is, tell him if he comes to Bnei Brak, I'll do it for free. So Chaim's the classic sense of humor, but the story is a true story that really happened. But the chiddush that I learned this week, the story I heard a few years ago, but the chiddush that I learned this week, I was learning the sugya. So Moshe Motzchakap in the Sefer Hilchos Shabbos b'Shabbos, Chelik Daled Amud Reish Yud Zayin, he quotes Rab Chaim that says that for this skula, for this inyan of having banim zechar ruim l'hayra, you have to make kiddush dafka on wine and not on grape juice. So it's like Rab Chaim Paskin. But what he added, Havdalah. Now, what to me was that what he added, so Rab Chaim added, you could be yoytza kiddush and Havdalah with grape juice. It's yayin l'chol dava. He says, but since the Gemara learns the skula of having banim ru'uyim lahira from the pasuk lahavdil lahayrais, which means you can't paskin when you drink wine, and if someone drinks grape juice, he could paskin. He's not pasul for duchening, pashtas. He's not pasul for paskining. So since here it seems to me it's a special skula for something that's intoxicating. So you see the psak is consistent, but even there's a svara to it. Divrei pi chacham kechein. But whatever the case is, I think it's very clear that the kois of Havdalah is very much part of the Havdalah. So the question is, how could someone think he came, and this is again when you're in a yeshiva in a campus, every Matzah Shabbos again, at least one person comes late, he came just as they finished the bracha of Eish, he heard the entire Havdalah, but he missed the Gafen. Is he Yaitza? How could he be Yaitza? If you have to have a kais, so how could he not hear the bracha Bar Pi Gafen? But then again, and here's really the crux of the issue today, maybe it's like its neighbors, quote unquote. Besamim and Ner, both of those brachas are also an integral part of Havdalah. Every child knows Yak Nahaz, the order. But then again, the halach is also a Gemara, it's a Shulchan Aruch, Ein Machzirin Achareya. If you have Ner, make the bracha. If you have Besamim, make the bracha. But let's say you don't have Besamim, so you can make Havdalah without Besamim. And the emphasis is, once a year, just about, when it comes, not every year, mamish, but once in a while, we do make Havdalah without Ner. And that is when Tisha B'Av falls on Matzah Shabbos, we only make the bracha of Ner on Matzah Shabbos. And Sunday night, we make Havdalah without Ner. So you see that Havdalah and Ner are not necessarily a package deal. So maybe wine is the same thing. Maybe for the Mavdil, you have to have a kais. Maybe for the listeners, the Gafen is not so important. And I'll tell you, therefore, maybe that would give us guidance to another common shayla that we often have, and we often wonder what to do. For some reason, maybe it's one of the Soidas Abriya. As soon as the Mavdil finishes the bracha of Havdalah, people say, Agut Tavach. Say, no, he didn't drink yet. No, Agut Tavach. They seem very convinced to give bracha immediately. Is it taka right that the listeners say Agut Tavach before the Mavdil drinks the wine? So Pashtis, I talk before the end of Havdalah. But again, maybe it's this special status that Gafen is not that important for the listeners. What do you mean it's not that important? Maybe it's like Besamim and Ner. So that's the one question that we have to clarify. Hopefully once we get that, I hope the rest will be simple. So I'll tell you a few halachas, and I think we'll get a very clear picture. This is a Ma'aseh Shahaya, a true story. Someone made Havdalah on what he thought was wine, and it seemed that his children took an empty bottle of wine, empty wine bottle. They put in the raspberry syrup with water, mixed it up, and put it in the refrigerator. They wanted to have a cold raspberry syrup, and the helpless father ended up making Havdalah on raspberry syrup, which is not even Chamar Medina. So here he is, he made a ganz Havdalah. When he came to drink the quote-unquote wine, he realized it was a pure shackle. What would you say was the Yoitza Havdalah? He said Havdalah with Ner and Besamim, but on raspberry syrup, which again is not even Chamar Medina, because it's basically water. So here is Mamash our Shaila. How important is the wine regarding the Havdalah? So this, the Magen Avram in Reish Ayin Aleph, Sif Cotton Lamed Beis, quotes a Trumas Hadeshen, which is a Chelik Beis Kuf Tezvav, regarding the same Shaila regarding Kiddush. Someone made Kiddush on some soda, on raspberry syrup. Says the Magen Avram, quoting the Trumas Hadeshen, even though Kiddush al Yayin is only midrabanan, but it's still the mitzvah d'Rabbanan. And you didn't make Kiddush al Yayin. Therefore, it's logical, you would have to repeat the entire Kiddush. That's how much wine is integral to Kiddush. If you didn't have wine, you have to repeat the Kiddush. Now again, even though midaraisi yaitza b'dvarim, so who cares if it's raspberry syrup? I said Kiddush midaraisa, but l'mais d'Rabbanan is also important. And the Trumas Hadeshen stresses, again, the fact that it's D'Rabbanan. He says, imagine someone didn't blow Tkiyos Dima Umid, or he didn't blow good Tkiyos Dima Umid. We'll say, forget about it. What do you mean? A mitzvah D'Rabbanan is also something. Now, although the Magen Avram is talking about Kiddush, says the Chidah, in Chaim Shol, Ayin Dalet, Sifkot and Mem Gimel, the same is true regarding Havdalah. Havdalah is only the Rabbanan. It's up to Chidah. First of all, the Ram holds Havdalah are the Raisa. And even if it's only the Rabbanan, so what? The Rabbanan is epis less than a mitzvah. So just like the Magen Avram says, quoting Trumas Hadeshen, that if you don't have wine for Kiddush, you have to repeat the Kiddush. So here we see this tremendous chiddush. Someone said the full Havdalah, but he didn't say it on wine, he would have to repeat the Havdalah. As I state in the Chiddush. Now the truth is, to us this is not such a shocking chiddush. I'll tell you, hopefully it should never be Negeya, but this Shaila is in Shulchan Aruch, so obviously it was Negeya. In Reish Tzadik Vav, Siv Gimel, Hilchas Havdalah, the Shaila is someone does not have any wine or grape juice in his house for Havdalah. What should he do? So we would say, say Havdalah b'tefillah, say Havdalah b'dvarim, so you won't have a kais of wine. Says the Shulchan Aruch, no. If you know you're going to get wine soon, don't make Havdalah and don't eat, fast until you get the wine. So at least minimally say Havdalah b'dvarim. The answer is no. Wine is integral to Havdalah. If you don't have it, wait for it. And the truth is, this is also not such a chiddush to us. Because when Tisha B'Av falls Mitzvah Shabbos, what do? We delay it till Sunday night. Why not make it tonight? You can't drink. You're a neinus. What could you do? The teretz is, the drinking of the wine is part of Havdalah. To the extent that you can't drink the wine, if you don't have wine, you delay Havdalah. So here we see that the wine is very much part of Havdalah. Okay? Now let me ask you another shayla, which also could happen. A person had wine, made Havdalah on wine, and before he was able to drink, the wine spilled out. So now he's starting the week with a wonderful siman toiv, that he should have a shefa of bracha, it should be pouring out brachas. So he's very positive about that. But the question is, was he yoitza the Havdalah? He made Havdalah ala kois, but he didn't end up drinking. It's all over the table, on the floor. So this is a lot better than the previous case, because the Havdalah was ala kois, but it didn't end up drinking it. So this is in Shulchan Aruch regarding Kiddush, Reish Ayin Aleph Sif Tezvav, that let's say he made Kiddush and the Kiddush cup spilled out before he could drink any of it, bring another kais, say a gofen, and drink, and then you completed the Kiddush. In other words, to go without drinking is not an option. But then again, the Kiddush was good. So why do you need a new gofen? Because you made a gofen on this kais. You have to go to the refrigerator, go to the basement to get another bottle of wine. Oh, that's a new shtiya. So here we have somewhat of a spalt. You were yoitza kiddush, but you have to drink wine. And since the bracha didn't cover that wine, you have to make a new gofen, and then by drinking, you completed successfully the kiddush. Now, here we see something very important. The bracha of gofen is not like b'samim and ner. Because if you don't have samim, you yoitz Havdalah. If you don't have ner, you yoitz Havdalah. Do it later that day, that night. But gofen is absolutely ma'akiv. If you don't have a kais, don't make Havdalah. If the kais spilled out, get another kais. So we see that gofen is more important than b'samim and ner. Let me tell you another story. This mamash is on Eisa Shahaya. I'll soon tell you how it happened. But someone made Havdalah, drank the wine, didn't spill it, but he realized after he drank the wine, he didn't make a gofen. Now, either he's half asleep, or I'll tell you this actual story. It was Meitzoi Yom Tiv, after a regular Yom Tiv, and it's not the typical Havdalah, Hine Kel Shuasi, and then the Psamim and Ner. It's just a gofen and a mavdil. But since it wasn't the normal, and he was not on autopilot, just press the Havdalah and it starts to shoot. It's not a typical Havdalah. So he started saying the bracha of Havdalah. So he said Havdalah, drank the kais, and then someone says, where was your gofen? Now he drank a revius, Havdalah ala kais, but he didn't make the gofen. What would you say to this individual? So one thing is for sure, unfortunately, he did an avla, he drank without a bracha. But does that invalidate the Havdalah? What should be the problem with that? So this is mamish, a beautiful shaila for our objective. How important is the gofen? He drank wine, ala kois, but he didn't say a gofen. Is the gofen ma'akiv? So in Svara, the gofen's ma'akiv drinking. He shouldn't drink, but he drank already. So Rav Moshe in Chele Gimel, Simen Mem Hey, Mistavra L'Dinim Echad Shachach V'Hischel Birchas Kiddush V'Loi Pri Agafen, and remember that after he drank, he's Yoitza. And I found earlier poskim, Tilo David, Imre Yoshem, but Mr. Rav says this, that if you made Havdalah without saying Agafen, you're Yoitza. Now, this is a Chiddush. I thought we said the Gafen is Ma'akiv. Yes, the Gafen is Ma'akiv because you have to drink the wine. But in this unusual scenario that you drank the wine without the Gafen is not enough to pass the Havdalah. What the Gafen is, you can't drink, but if he did drink, he would be Yoitz. Now, what's worth mentioning is that Rav Shlomo Zalman and Shmir HaShabbos in the Chele Gimel, which is Tikkunim, which he himself added to Shmir HaShabbos, Chele Aleph and Beis, in Siman Samach, Ha'or Tzadik Aleph, he seems to say that the Gafen is Ma'akiv. He says, just like if don't drink wine, you're not Yoitz Havdalah, so too, if you drank without Gafen, you're Tochen, you're not Yoitz. Why? Because Gam Birchas Bar Pri Agafen Kechelik Mikvoid Havdalah U'Mitzvah L'Shmoya Gamzeh. In other words, maybe the Gafen is part of Havdalah. And as we know, Hamavda Mekaysh Echol till the end is important. So Shlomo Zalman says Yitachem. He doesn't say this definitively, but it's possible that the Gafen is Ma'akiv. Okay, that's a Chiddush. And I see many poskim or Mekel. So if it does happen, you could be Soymech Safek Magzalak not to repeat Havdalah. But the boys were getting a very clear picture. For Havdalah, you have to have a kois. You have to drink the kois. If you didn't say the Gafen, that's an Avla and Hilchais Brachas. But it wouldn't be the Evet Pasel, the Havdalah. This leads to the next question. Let's say the Mavdal had a kois, made a Gafen. The problem is before he drank, he said a Gutavach, he spoke out. So he made a Havdalah kois, had a kois, he spoke out before he drank. What's the verdict for this gentleman? So there's no doubt about it. Since he has to drink to be Yoitz Havdalah, he definitely needs a new Gafen. Because he spoke out between the Gafen and drinking, he has to have a new Gafen. That's unquestionable. The question is, does it also passel the entire Havdalah? So this we find in Hilchas Kiddush. In Reish Ayin Aleph Tezvav, if someone made Kiddush, same story, before he drank the wine, he spoke out. So the Mechaber says he's Yoitz the Kiddush, but he has to repeat the Gafen, and then the Kiddush would be an effective Kiddush. The Svara is Pashat. You have Havdalah, you had a Kiddush ala Kais. The only thing is your Gafen, you passel. So make another Gafen. And Mr. Brewer explains the Hefsek only passels the Bracha, does not passel the Havdalah. L'chayra, although the Shulchan Aruch is talking about Kiddush, the exact same logic applies to Havdalah. So if the Mavdal spoke out before he drank, repeat the Gafen, and you Yaitz. Of course, the Mavdal should not talk out. You're not allowed to talk out. You're passeling a Bracha, requiring a new Bracha Shalai L'Tzayim. The next question, which is challenging, because Negeya every week, and it's interesting, not so much Mefurish in the Paiskim, how about if the listeners spoke out? In other words, the father makes the Havdalah, the children, the women, they spoke out before the Mavdal drank. So here, l'chayra, there's no problem. Why? The Havdalah was ala kais. You're not planning on drinking, especially women will never drink the Havdalah wine. So what's wrong if he spoke out? So how could you pass the Havdalah? It was Havdalah ala kais, the one that made the Havdalah drank it. You spoke out and you passed the Agafen. So what? You're not drinking anyhow. So we could pretty much assume if the listener spoke out, there was still Yoitz. Next question that comes up with the big oilam every single Mitzvah Shabbos at least once. Someone came late, he just finished Shemay Esrei, is very common. Bekitza, he missed the Gafen. The Mavdal said he kel Shuasi, Gafen, and he finished Shemay Esrei, and he just came in time for Besamim. So he kel Shuasi is Zichanat Ma'akiv. But the Maisi didn't hear the Gafen. And we just proved the Agafen is Ma'akiv, the Havdalah. So how could you be Yaitz without hearing the Hagafen? But we find the Magen Avram in Reish Tzadik Vav, Sifkat and Yud, Mishnah Berurah and Lamed Gimel quotes it, that if someone only heard, it's only mechaven to be Yaitz with the Havdalah, but was not mechaven to be Yaitz with the Gafen, he just wasn't listening, he's Yaitz in the Havdalah. Why? Because for all the listeners are concerned, the Ikki is Baruch Ato Hashem HaMavdal Ben Kodesh until the end. Now, Magen Avram Mishnah Berurah talking about that he heard it, but he wasn't mechaven to be Yaitz. But says the Rab in Yud Ches, Hu Adin, if the listener missed the Gafen entirely. He walked in late, he finished Esrei late, B'kitzah, he did not hear the Gafen, he's Yaitz. And indeed, this I saw, the Ber Moshe in Gimel Nun Tes says if he missed the Gafen, he's Yaitz, because it's Havdalah Alakais. You don't have to hear it. The Chalkas Yaakov and Archaim Tzadik Aleph and the Oznidbru in Beis Test add a beautiful raya that you don't have to hear the Gafen, because Allah is if someone was eating Friday afternoon, this could be Negaya when Purim falls on Friday, and Shabbos comes, so Mekididin Payus Mappa, and he makes Kiddush, and you don't say a Gafen because he was already drinking wine. So you see that you don't have to actually have the Gafen to be Yaitz Kiddush if there was a Gafen. So if you missed the Gafen, it's not any worse. Next question is, the Havdalah went well, the person said Havdalah well, he drank the wine. The question is, if one of the listeners are allowed l'chatchila to say Gut Tevach before the Mavdal drinks. Now, if your minig is to stand by Havdalah, and then you sit down to drink the wine, there's always somewhat of a pause between the end of Havdalah and you drinking the wine. And that's when this Shaila really is common. There's a few seconds, and people are quick to say, Hagut Tavach, and this. So the question is, if Lamaisa, they're allowed to talk out before the Mavdal drinks, the listener is allowed to talk out, and if you tell me they're not allowed to talk out, how much does the Mavdal have to drink to allow the listeners to talk? Does he have to have a drop? Does he have to have a Mulay Lugma? So Pashtis, what's the problem if I talk out before you drank it all? I'm a listener. We just learned I don't have to hear the Gafen. So if I don't have to hear the Gafen at all, it makes sense that if I heard the Gafen but I spoke out, what's wrong? If I want to be Yaitz with the Gafen because I myself want to drink, then I can't talk out before you drink, before the Mavdal drinks, because then I pass the bracha. But if me, the listener, I'm not planning on drinking, so I don't have to have a Gafen. So what's wrong if I talk out before the Mavdal drinks? I'm not planning on drinking anyhow. Now, Kiddush is much more of an issue, because Kiddush, typically, people do drink from the wine. So let's say I'm listening to my father's Kiddush. So I usually am Yaitz with his Kiddush, with his bracha. So I shouldn't talk out before I drink, because then I'm going to have to make another Gafen. I'm requiring a bracha for no reason. That's no good. But let's say in a typical case, the listeners are not drinking Havdalah anyhow. So what's wrong if they talk out? So that's really the question that's so negeya. And it's interesting that it's not mefurish in the earlier Paiskim, certainly not in the Rishonim. To my knowledge, the first that discusses this at length is a Stei Chemed in the Standard Prince Chelik Vav, page 403. It's not mamish our shaila, but if we compare it, I think we'll get a very good understanding. The Stei Chemed quotes from earlier sources that some Svardim that were a little focused on Kabbalah, when they smelled the besamim by Havdalah, they said, Ishei reyach nichoyach l'Hashem. That must be some type of Kabbalah, but some significance is saying, Ishei reyach nichoyach l'Hashem. So he quotes the Pesach Hatvir, one of the early Svardish Paiskim, that's not a good idea, because you have the three brachas, Gafen, besamim, and there he calls it are in a shtalshalus. It's like one package. And don't be mafsik in this ishtalshalus. As I zok the Pesach Hadvir. Frag the Stei Chemed, your only problem is ishtalshalus, at some Kabbalah. How could you, the listener, talk out before the Mavdal drinks the wine? Forget about Kabbalah. La'alocha. You want to be yoitz with this Havdalah, you have to wait until Havdalah concludes. When is Havdalah over? When the Mavdil drinks the wine. So forget about Kabbalah. You're being mafsik in Havdalah. You want to be yoitz with his Havdalah. How do you talk out before he drinks? He says, and don't tell me that this tefillah, Hashem, is like Gevilla Turi, like feed the animals, because it's not really part of Havdalah. And then he says, and don't tell me, listen to his Einfeld, maybe this is like a bris, that after you make a gofen, they have the whole Kayim as the Yelad Azel of Limai, the Kodesh Rabbi Yisrael. Why is that a hefsek? So that's because that tefillah is mentioned in the Rishonim. So it's part of the text of the gofen, bris, bracha. But your own addition, Reich Nichoyach L'Hashem, it's a hefsek. And he says, some people say, Simin Bracha Vatzlacha in Mil Havdalah by Mori Eish. He says another tefillah, some say, B'mei Yizakin Naris Orchai. And the Stei Chemed quotes 4 Gedolim that say, during Havdalah, nobody should talk. You can't talk until the completion of Havdalah, which is the drinking of the wine. In an earlier in that same chelik, page 397, the Stei Chemed said, some felt that Taka, the Mavdil, can't talk until he drinks, but the listeners could talk. Because if you listen, if you want to be yaitz with Havdalah, you have to be quiet until the end of Havdalah. And what's the end of Havdalah? When the Mavdil drinks. He says, I warn my family, I warn my Talmidim, no one should talk until I drink the wine of Havdalah. He says, Kayim Esayel Ezel of by that tefillah by the bris, you're allowed to say, but talking is wrong. He says these. Zachar Avram says only the Mavdil can't talk, but it's not true. If you want to be yaitz with Havdalah, you have to be quiet until the end of Havdalah. Now what's beautiful, you see a Gadol was looking for the emes. He adds there, someone brought a raya to my shita from a Magen Avram in 2 places. Kuf Ayin Zayin, Kuf Samach Zayin, and Reish Sadik Tes. The raya is not a raya, even though it sounds like a great raya, but it's not a raya, but the psak is still emes. But listen to how he's focused on the truth. The Magen Avram has a very common scenario. Now, since I want you to enjoy it as much as I do, let me make this very clear. Let's say I make hamoitzi for my family. So I make hamoitzi, and my family are yaitz with my bracha. Okay. Now, so I make hamoitzi, I cut up the challah, and then I cut off my family, and I swallowed a piece of challah. I gave it to one of my sons. Before he ate the challah, he spoke out. So I made the hamoitzi for him, and I ate brachas challah. Before he ate his challah, he spoke out. Is that a hefsek for him? I'm good. I'm fine. My bracha is fine. He wants to use my bracha, which is fine, but he spoke out before he ate. Does he have to make another moitzi? Very common. If you have talkative children, my bracha was good, their bracha wasn't. So some place can say it's fine, as long as the bracha was chal. But the Magen Avram in these 2 places says no. If he spoke out before he ate, he lost the bracha and he has to make a new bracha. So some say, aha, so what do you see? That the listeners can't talk out. The same is true for Havdalah. The listeners can't talk out, say good until what? Until he drinks. Says the Magen Avram, I'm sorry. It says the Stei Chemed, I think the psak is true, but the raya is not a raya. Because that's much different. Because there the listener wants to eat the challah. He wants to use the bracha. If he spoke out, he invalidated the bracha. But here, the listeners are not using the guffin. They're not drinking wine. So what's wrong? So to Stei Chemed, although the psak is true, but I have to say that the raya is not an emissary raya. Rav Moshe Chelik Dal Siman Ayin was asked that people say Agut Tevach before, and his lashon is before the Mavdil drinks the Malay Lugma, Vadehu Shaloi Karoi Ulasois Lechatchila. It's not proper. Why? Because Rav Moshe goes on to prove that drinking the Havdalah wine is part of the mitzvah. And he has a few rayas. that drinking is part of the mitzvah. When people bench with a kais by Shalashudis, especially by a Sheva Brachis, so you're always faced with a quandary. After benching is already time for Ma'ariv, and you didn't have Havdalah yet. And the question is, who's going to drink that kais of benching? So Moshe says, since the minig is you give it to the kala, someone should drink. So let no one drink. The teretz of kaishel bracha has to be consumed. So we see drinking the kais is part of the mitzvah. And Moshe says, the second raya, why don't we make kiddush on Yom Kippur? As the Yom Tov of all Yom Tovim, says the Gemara, the Mishnah in the end of Tainis, why don't you make kiddush? You can't drink, so don't drink. A third raya is the Ramosha that we find regarding when you make kiddush on ala kais and the kais spilled out the mashal, you have to drink. You have to get another kais. What's the point? Drinking the kais is part of the mitzvah. So Ramosha reasons it makes sense regarding Havdalah. When is Havdalah completed? When the Mavdal drinks. So why are you talking before he drinks? Now, true, you're not planning on drinking. You don't need his guffin per se, but you need his Havdalah. And drinking of the kais is the culmination of the Havdalah. And therefore, Moshe concludes, Yesh lahazir lahashaymin shlo yafsiku afilu b'amir shavua toiv agotevach lechatchila until he drinks. Rav Sternbach in Chelik Aleph Reish Nun Zayin says same yisoid that he says a little more lamdish that the drinking of the kais is a chiyuv of Havdalah, and the Mavdal does it b'shlichus of us. But there has to be a drinking of the kais. Don't talk out until he drinks. Now in Chelik Dalet Simenayin, same exact Marmak like Rav Moshe, but in Chuvas on Hagis Chelik Dalet Simenayin, he says Rav Moshe you can't talk until the Mavdal drinks a Malay Lugmav. I don't agree to that. Because really for Havdalah, you don't have to drink at all. Why do you drink at all? It shouldn't be a gnai for the kais. But once you drank a little bit, you were yaitz. We do drink a malay lugmav, but that's not part of Havdalah. He says, when you're listening to Kiddush, you have to wait until the Makadosh drinks a malay lugmav, because malay lugmav is part of Kiddush. It's a chiyuv of Kiddush. Some say it's ma'akiv. So that I understand. But he says to say you have to have a malay lugmav to talk out, I don't agree. Rabbi Moshe says you do, and the Shmir Shabbos in Samach Lamateh says you do. So we'll say that it's kedai for the listeners not to talk, not to say agut tevach until the Mavdal drinks at least a malay lugmav. Okay? If you want to be Saimach al Kolshu. But one thing I will say, if Lamaisa he spoke out before the Mavdal drank it all, about the Yoyitz. Rav Padava in Cheshev Eifa in Aleph Beis was asked regarding Kiddush. Now again, this is very common. I'll tell you when this is even more common. With those that make Kiddush standing and sit down to drink the wine. So until he sits down and drinks the wine, there's a delay. And someone spoke out before the Makadosh drank the wine. So the Shayil asked Rav Padava, was I Yoytz if I spoke out before he drank the wine of Kiddush? So Rav Padava says, your assumption is you're not to talk out. Can I know why? If you're not drinking wine, why can you talk out? So he says, but I looked into it and it's true. And he says the same yisoid that the other place can say. Since even if the wine spilled out, you have to go and get another kais, obviously drinking of the wine is part of the Kiddush. So if you want to be Yaitz Kiddush, and even though you're not drinking wine, but there has to be wine that's consumed, don't talk until wine is consumed. So he says, therefore, regarding Kiddush, ideally you should not talk until the Makadosh drinks the wine. Okay, but he does it. If you want to be Yaitza and drink the wine with his agafen, then Avad you shouldn't talk. Because then you're making a chiyuv of a new bracha. You could use his bracha and you talk out. So we definitely see from all these paiskim that Lamaisa, you should not talk out, even to say good tevach, it's not enough of a tzorich, until the Mavdal drank at least a malay lugmav. You want to be Saimach on a kolshu, but basically the drinking is part of the Havdalah. Even though no one says it's ma'akiv. If someone spoke out and he's not the mavdil himself, he's yaitza. But l'chatchila, one should not talk. Next question I'd like to share with you, because again it's the gay every single Motzei Shabbos in many homes, and it's something that I didn't find clear in earlier poskim. And here's the following scenario. For those homes, like my home, that only the mavdil, only I make the brachas, my family listens, are yaitz with that, so it's basically no shayla. But the question is, in those families that the listeners make their own bracha of besamim and ner. So the mavdil makes besamim, he pauses, and the other people make brachas. The mavdil makes ner, and the listeners make their own brachas. So let me ask you a few simple questions. When I saying Havdalah, and I pause to my family to make their bracha on ner, on besamim, let's say, do I say amen to others' brachas? Do they say amen to one another's? Do they say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai to my brachas? Samim and ner. They're listening, but they're not being yaitza. They're making their own. Do they say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai to my brachas? They get to those families every single Motzei Shabbos. So you're wondering, what's the shayla? Amen? Amen's not lashon hara. Why can I say amen? Why can they say amen? Amen's a mitzvah, isn't it? Allah and Shulchan Aruch. But here I'll tell you, think about your location. Let's first talk about me, the mavdil. What's my location now? I'll tell you. I said Hine Kel Shiwasi, which is very nice. I said Boyer Pri Agafen. Did I drink it? No. And now I want to say amen to their bracha of besamim. Why is that a hefsek? We all know if I say a moitzi lechem in haaretz, and before I swallow, I hear someone else making a moitzi, I'm not going to say amen. Between the bracha and the actual eating is the worst form of hefsek. I put on my tefillin shayad, between shal and yad shal roish, I ask someone else's bracha, don't answer amen, b'shem oifen. So my location is between the gafen and drinking. How can I go and say amen to their bracha? To say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai? Certainly not. My location is between gafen and drinking. Now you're saying, wait a minute. But here, there's a whole package in between. I say gafen, I don't drink. I say gafen, psamim, ner, hamavdil, and that doesn't bother you? So a 3-letter word, amen, gets you all nervous? I could say psamim after gafen, ner, hamavdil. That's not a hefsek? Just one word, 3-letter word, amen, is all of a sudden a crisis? So what's the problem? I'll tell you very pashut. Because the bracha of besamim, ner, and Havdalah is an integral part of Havdalah. Chazal said the order is yak nahaz, whatever the reason is. Yayin, besamim, ner, Havdalah. So obviously, the besamim, ner, Havdalah is not a hefsek between the gafen and drinking. So I'm doing the way Chazal told me to do. So I'm good. But to stick in an amen that really doesn't belong there, maybe that amen is a hefsek, just like it's a hefsek between a moitzi and eating the challah. Just like it's a moitzi in between tefillin shiyah and tefillin sharash. And the emphasis, there are machmir that say, me the mavdil, I saw the lechem shloima, this in Memdala, says this, amen on someone else's bracha is an absolute hefsek. Now, this is very challenging because a yid is programmed, you hear a bracha, you say amen. But this amen should be a hefsek. Maybe it's a good idea that the people that say a bracha should say the bracha quietly, like people do by tefillin shel reish. There it's a question of amen yisayma, but here it's a question of hefsek. And I'll tell you a dava nifla. This lechem shleima quotes from the Yagel Yaakov, in the Yagel Yaakov, where quotes from his Rebbe, the Imre Yosef, the Spinker Rebbe, that had a very unusual minhag, that when he was saying Havdalah, and he had a family, and Chassidim, whatever it is, whoever listens to Havdalah, and they made their own B'sam Maner, and he wanted to say Amen to their bracha, but it was a half-sick, because he said Agafen, then you drink. So after he said Agafen on the wine, he licked some of the wine. Some Masajid Kedushin, after they make the guffin, they lick some of the wine. They don't start drinking the wine, but they somehow get the wine from their hand into the mouth. And if you're creative, you could do it in a way that it's not noticeable. But the Imre Yosef's minig was to drink some of the wine, get some of the wine, a kolshu. This way they could say amen to the brachas of the Besamim in there. Now, it sounds like a great idea, but you want to hear a funny question that's not funny at all? It's very penetrating. Why is it mutter to do that? Are you not allowed to eat or drink before Havdalah? And you say, what? Before Havdalah? I'm in the middle of Havdalah. You're in the middle of Havdalah, but you didn't get to Havdalah yet. What's your location? You said Gafen. You said Besamim. You didn't start Havdalah yet. So you're eating or drinking before Havdalah is awesome. So how could you do that? So the answer has to be that you're not allowed to eat or drink. But te'ima kolshu, a little drop is mutter. In fact, the more brachas lashon is nun beis the toyim le biyadei. A little te'ima is not also before a mitzvah. But it's just ironic that this would be a problem. So here we have an unusual situation that to say amen is a problem, and ad kedikach some drank from the wine. Now, Lamaisa, this is not done. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not saying you should do it. My Eidim told me about his Eider, Aaron Cutler once told his Talmidim that, he's mekanach sim that we are gartu by davening. It really elevates the davening. So the Talmud had a chutzpah to say, so why is the Rashiv we are gartu? Don't be kind of them, don't be jealous, join them. He says, I follow my Messiah. So I don't think any of us have a minig from Doire Doires to drink the wine after Gafen. So we don't drink the wine. But one thing we should be wary of, if the Mavdil hears someone else's bracha, he should not say amen to that bracha. Now, I did see a Chiddush Nifla, a Chiddush Noah, I could say, Rav Vosnem in Chelik Zayin Chafei has this very shaila. If the Mavdil, me, the one that's Havdalah, could say amen to my family's brachas of Samim Oner. And he says, Yesh Mokoim it's possible that you could say amen. He's not saying it definitively, but perhaps you could say amen. But listen to his Einfeld. He says, when there's a real hefsek problem, let's say amoitzi, before I eat to say amen, that's a hefsek, you lost the bracha. Tefillin is a hefsek. But here, we do say the bracha of the samim, and it's not a hefsek. So maybe the amen of the samim we connect with the Besamim. So therefore it becomes a package with the Besamim and there's no hefsek. Not that once you mafsik a Besamim, you're not a mafsik with something else. Chas v'shalom, that's not true. Besamim not a hefsek. But maybe the Ameina Besamim connects to Besamim. And his lashon is, it's an haracha, it's an extension of the Besamim bracha. So if you're allowed to say the Besamim bracha, you're allowed to answer amen someone else's Besamim bracha. Which of course is a big chiddush, and that's why the other poskim didn't say this. But one thing I will say, if the Mavdil mistakenly said amen to someone else's Besamim or Ner bracha, you at least have Rav Vosner's bracha to be Seimecha. Now, Lamaisa, the minig that many have, that only the Mavdil says all the brachas, obviously avoids this issue, which is a good idea. This way you don't get involved with tzveikas. The next question is, okay, the Mavdil knows, we know what to do. Mavdil, you focus on Havdalah, do not answer amen. Now the question, again, let's put this very clearly. We'll talk about a biblical story. Yaakov Avinu has two sons, Reuven and Shimon. Okay? So everybody remembers. Yaakov made Havdalah. He's not saying amen to Reuven or Shimon's brachas at all. But now the question is, when Reuven says the bracha on Besamim, can Shimon answer amen? And when Shimon says the bracha on Besamim, can Reuven say amen? Can they say Baruch Baruch Shemoi to each other's brachas? Can they say Baruch Shemoi to the father Yaakov's brachas? So we will say, location, Reuven, what's your location? Middle of Havdalah, right? You want to be Yaitza with the Gafen of your father Yaakov Avinu. Why are you talking out between Gafen and drinking? Just like we said that Reuven and Shimon should not talk out, should not say Baruch Gutavach until after Yaakov Avinu drank the wine, because you want to have the full package of Havdalah. Maybe we'll say Ruvain or Shimon or anybody for that matter, maybe Leah and anybody else also, should not say anything until Yaakov drank the wine, which would of course preclude saying Amen and Baruch Baruch Shemai. According to this, they shouldn't even say Amen, listen to this, to Yaakov Avinu's brachas. Why? If they're making their own bracha, they don't need Yaakov Avinu's brachas. So just forget it. So it would come out that no one should say Amen to anybody's bracha and Baruch Baruch Shemai, Man B'char Shmei. Bishloima, if Reuven and Shimon would be Yoitza with Yaakov's brachas, then if Adar have to say Amen, that's part of being Yoitza. It's not Ma'akab, it's part of being Yoitza. But in this scenario, they're on their own, it would come out that they should not say Amen to anybody else's brachas. In fact, I saw, I say written there, Yunim Balacha, Chelik Aleph, Amit Shinva, who says maybe it's a good idea that even the Mavdil should say the Psalmim and there quietly. In other words, everybody should say the bracha privately. Why? Otherwise you machshel people saying Amen, which is a hefsek. Now, in a camp or a yeshiva that some are yoitzu with the Mavdil and some aren't, he can't say it quietly. But Lamaisa, let me tell you before you get all nervous, the minig is not like this. The minig is that the listeners, the Ruvain, the Shimon, the women, the men, could say Amen to other brachas, to the Mavdil's brachas. Only the Mavdil should not say Amen. If you'll ask me why, we just said the Mavdil should not, the Shoimim should not talk out until the Mavdil drinks the wine. I think the svara for us is very gishmak. La'alacha, it's not a hefsek for the Shoimim. As we said, if they said good tevach, they were yoitza. It's only a chumrah to get the entire package of Havdalah. Note, in this case, what's a better chumrah? Not to say Amen, or to be machmeh and say Amen, and comply with Allah and Shulchan Aruch of saying Amen. Maybe the chumrah in this case is to say Amen. And indeed, the Shmir Shabbos in Samach, Sif Chav Zayin, he says, if the Shoimim, the listeners, the Reuven and the Shimons, want to drink the wine, they should not answer anything, which is very rare. When do you have listeners drinking the wine? But on the bottom he quotes of Shlomo Zalman that if Lemaisa they're not drinking the wine, he says to the extent that the Shoimim perhaps even could say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai. Now I haven't heard during Havdalah someone say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai to the Mavdil's brachas, but it comes out that it's not a hefsek. But certainly to say Amen, for Ruvain to say Amen to Shimon, and Shimon on Ruvain, and Ruvain and Shimon on their father's brachas, is definitely okay. Because it's not a real hefsek, and be better be machmeh in Amen. Now, Lamaisa, I think I understand why the Welt does not say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai during Havdalah, even the Shaimin, because it's not really a chiv say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai. The Vilna Gaon Dafka didn't say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai. So maybe it's like a more kedai to be machmeh and not say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai. Because Baruch Hu Baruch Shemai is optional. But Amen, which is mandatory, Pashas Dechiyah, and Rav Shlomo Zalman, in fact, is quoted later in Siman Samach Aleph, Ha'orach Chav Gimel, that he says, not only the Shoimim are allowed to say Amen to the Mavdil's bracha, they dafka should say Amen. Now why dafka should say Amen? So he says that really we want that the Havdalah should be one package. Besamim, Gafen, Besamim and there. When you make your own bracha, you're basically like separating yourself from his Havdalah. So how do you reconnect yourself to his Havdalah? By saying Amen to his Besamim and there. So you have a shaykhis to the Besamim and there. So then you have the whole package of Havdalah. So Lamaisa, let's be very clear. The Mavdil should not answer to others' bracha. It's a problem of hefsek. Some say even b'diavad. Okay, maybe b'diavad you could be saimach. But the other listeners could say Amen to each other, and even Baruch Baruch Shemai might be mutter according to Shlomo Zalman. I want to mention, I saw this in the Vayivarach David Chelik Aleph, Siman Lamed Ches. He says sometimes you have in a family setting very small children who are lo higi lechinuch, and they say a bracha on Besamim Moner. In that case, no one should say Amen to their bracha. Why? Because the truth is, the Ramah in Reish Tezvav says you're not allowed to say Amen to a bracha of a child shelo yagil lechinuch. If it's not a bracha, it's Amen you say. Okay, so the Welt is somehow mekel. Maybe that's part of chinuch, even though it's lo yagil lechinuch. But to say Amen during Havdalah to a lo yagil lechinuch is a hefsek. And he adds another problem, which is pretty common, that you want to mechanech a child to make a bracha, but he's so young, he doesn't know how to make a bracha. So the family say, no, say, Baruch, Atah. So you train the child to say a bracha. Now, the child is not mechuyev in mitzvahs, he's a lo yagil lechinuch. So why are you doing that during Havdalah? That's the hefsek. You want to mechanech a child, that's a great idea. But first of all, he should be a gil lechinuch. And even if he's a gil lechinuch, how do you make chinuch during Havdalah? So you're talking out during Havdalah, and that's a problem. So Lamaisa, this seems to be l'chayra pashut, even though again it's not in the earlier poskim. Let me tell you another shayla. Lamaisa shahayim. It was during Havdalah, and the phone kept on ringing. It must have been important. And today with caller ID, you know who's calling. And they're holding now after the Boyer Meyareh, and the phone is ringing, and people are getting nervous. Now it's not a sakanas nefashis, but it's a shasat chag. So I saw in the Nishma Shabbos, Chelik Beis Tafkuf Lamed Aleph, he says if one of the listeners, listen to this, I mean this never happened, and if it would happen, they would probably run him out of town, but one of the listeners, the Ruvain or the Shimon, l'chayra could pick up the phone and say, yes, okay, fine, we'll call you back, okay, thank you, and hang up. Why not? And the worst scenario, what did he do? He's not the mavdal, he's a listener. He was mafsik between what and what? Between gafen and the drinking. So what? If you hold, he's allowed to say a kapanim b'diavad, a good tevach after Havdalah before someone drinks. B'diavad is not a hefsek, so why is talking out before Havdalah hefsek? It's the same issue. That's what he suggests. B'shas chag. I'll tell you a few more interesting shaylas, and it's all basically the same thread, the same nekuda. Someone, don't ask me how, someone made Havdalah, he was about to drink the wine, they go, no, and they pointed that he forgot to say B'samim. He made the full package, he forgot to make the B'samim bracha. So, it's not the end of the world. B'samim, you could say a whole night. So he'll make up B'samim. He has B'samim, he'll make up B'samim. When should he make that B'samim bracha? What would you recommend? So I would say, well, first drink, first things first, and then you make the B'samim. Set up Shleim Zalman and Shmir Shabbos and Samach Lamed Beis and the Shag Amer and Hey Nun Aleph, both say this. No. Let him say the B'samim bracha right then and there after he finishes a mavdil before he drinks. It's a hefsek. So he says, why is it a hefsek? You made the guffen and then you make the B'samim bracha, that doesn't bother you? So what's the difference he made it then or made it at the end? And the Zalman adds, since the Chazal Masakin, you should have someone there ala kois, not afterwards. So the Shag Amer adds that Lamaisa, the Seid is not ma'akif. To us it sounds outlandish. Before you drink, no, drink. But then again, you made the guffen 3 minutes ago. That doesn't bother you. So it only bothers you after Hamavdul. But what's the difference? So they both insist that you make the guffen. You first say the bracha of the psalm, and then you drink. And the Shag Amer quotes the Samas Chaim and Simon Reish Mem Aleph, that this year Matzoi Yom Kippur Shechal b'Matzoi Shabbos is a question if you make a psalm bracha or not. You're allowed to make a psalm bracha. The minhag is to make a psalm bracha. Matzoi Yom Kippur Shechal b'Matzoi Shabbos. The Samas Chaim was asked, but what about a problem of Safik bracha lahakol? He says, what's the big deal? As long as you smell, it's not a Safik brachas. It's a question of hefsek. It's not a hefsek. If that's the seder, it's not a hefsek. We once had a shayla, one of the shoymim didn't have b'samim until he chapped it at the end of Havdalah, and he has the b'samim in his hand, he's about to make the bracha. Same shayla, when should he make the bracha? Before the mavdal drinks, or wait till after the mavdal drinks? So we would say, wait, first let him drink. But again, it's l'chayr the same yisoid. Let him dafka make the bracha before the mavdal drinks, and this way he has a Havdalah ala kois. Now this is all regarding B'samim. Of course, the same is true regarding ner. If you forgot to make the ner, you can make it before you drink the wine. Now, basically, this halach is applied to Kiddush as well. Now, let's be very clear. The Mavdil, the Mekadesh should not talk naturally until he drinks. The Shoimim, halacha, if they're not drinking, they're allowed to talk before the Mekadesh drinks the wine. But they should wait until the package is completed, until they have the Kiddush completely concludes. If they spoke out and they want to drink the wine, they would have to make a new gafen. Till when should they wait to talk out? Here the Paiskim seem to agree, wait until the Mekadesh drinks a Malay Lugmav, because the Malay Lugmav is part of Kiddush. And Chav, I would love if Dinim could help me with this one, because this is extremely negeya. Again, in a camp and yeshiva, it's at least once a Matzah Shabbos. Here's the following scenario. In those places that only the Mavdil makes the brachas, there's no shayla. But typically, there are always some people that make their own bracha of Havdalah, okay? Usually, the problem is with the minig of making your own bracha. This shayla is punk fakir. Let's say the minig is, some people have the minig, I am yoyt with his bracha. So I listen, I smell the psalm with him, I make the eish with him, and I'm fine. If you have a big oil, you have a camp, a yeshiva, it often happens that you don't get the psalm to smell until after Havdalah. So the question is, let's say my mazel, I don't make a bracha, I'm yoyt with the mavdal. I got the psalm after he drank the wine. And I want to smell psalm. I want to be yoyt to the mitzvah. Do I make a new bracha on the psalm? My minig is not to make it. But now, I first got it after Havdalah. Again, if your minig is to make your own psalm, so there's no difference before or after. I'm talking about if your minig is not to make a psalm bracha. So the chayre would say, how could you use the bracha that happened 3 minutes ago? Come on, so much action went on. There was ner, there was Havdalah, he drank. But then again, every Havdalah, there's this built-in hefsek. He makes a gafen, then he makes psamim, ner, Havdalah, and then he drinks. So if all that doesn't bother you, why should it bother you for my bracha of psamim? So I should be able to smell the psamim with his bracha after he drank. But, says Rabbi Zalman, quoted in the Shmir Shabbos in Samach, Sifkot and Tzadik Dalid, there's a big chilik. Because the Seder is to drink the wine after the complete Havdalah. That's not a hefsek. But the Seder is not to smell the Havdalah psamim after Havdalah. So maybe then it is a hefsek. And he says more so. The bracha of gafen, the drinking of the wine, is part of Havdalah per se. So it doesn't get possible with hefsek. But the psamim is a regular birchas hananin. You can make it after, you can make it before. He says, maybe it's like, you know what it's like? If a man makes kiddush for his family, and the women are sitting in the house, but they hear the kiddush, the pais can discuss, maybe the man's leishev is a hefsek for the women. Because for them it's not even shach, not even the sukkah. He said, no, maybe, since the leishev is part of kiddush, it's not a hefsek. But here, the Havdalah, b'samim, there's no shaychus at the end. But then he has a murdik alumnus. It happens all the time if you have children that are not so quick to listen. You say, let's go, we're making kiddush, we're making a moitzi, and they're tarrying. So halach is, if you just decide, I'm not waiting for them, you make hamoitzi, and then they listen, then they go wash. The halach is allowed to wash after hamoitzi, make tilsedayim, and then eat the challah. So what do you see? After a long break, they could go back to the hamoitzi bracha. And that's what Rabbi Zalman seems to conclude at the end of the shtickle in Shmir Shabbos. Even though there, it's not the Seder. You're supposed to make it tilsedayim and then hamoitzi. But if lamaisa it fits, it's not a hefsek. So this question is a tzarachiyan. Rabbi Zalman at the end seems to be noted that lamaisa you could smell the psamim after Havdalah. But I want to just make a point that that's only if you certainly were not yoitza earlier. L'mashal b'samim, you didn't smell it. Then you have to smell it afterwards. Then you have a shayla bracha or not. By ner, There's no shaila that you probably were yoitza earlier. You don't have to go over to it and put your hand next to it. You have to be able to have ano. So certainly there, it's not kedai to make a new bracha. But remember, Rabbi say, it's interesting, of the whole Havdalah, the only bracha that's ma'akif for everybody, l'chol hadeyis, is the Hamavdal bracha. And look around, by there's an oilam, people are busy doing everything but listening to Hamavdal bracha. They're getting the psalm, they're getting the ner. I saw the Chafetz Chaim in the Tanhagis, he writes, they say about him, that we had a big oilam for Havdalah, he left out the psalm and bracha. He was afraid people would get busy with that and miss Havdalah. So he said it after Havdalah. He gave up a din Gemara because he wanted to be Yaitz Havdalah. Okay, we don't do that, but the ik is to listen to our Mavdil and the Yaitza. I couldn't talk to you all.
Shem English, I would like to thank Rabbi Smith. Also, I would like to thank Mishpachas Kalish, and another thank the Shir Lishma, the Chassam Seifer, the Heilige Chassam Seifer, Rab Moshe, Rab Shmuel. Rabbi, if you want to get the CDs from the Chalamoid Shurim, it's a great Chalamoid, all the neighborhoods, it's in the back of the Smedrish. There's the Shtul Yeshivas Ben Ezmanim in all the neighborhoods. Today, in 1 o'clock, Mr. Hashem, come back in 2 hours, we'll have the Shir, Harav Atzadik, Rav Prizant, the Rav of Union City is coming, giving chizik for the Nuzman, the Edom of the Koizim Megreba, today in 2 hours, 1 o'clock. Tomorrow, the Rosh Hashiva for Rabbi Eli Ber Wachfeudel is coming. Tomorrow, 1 o'clock, Mr. Hashem. Tuesday, the Beshina Rebbe. Wednesday, Rabbi Malach. Thursday, Rabbi Gibbs. Come 1 o'clock every single day, you'll join it. It was going to be Gavaldik. Rabbi say, one more time, the safe of Rabbi Smith. Everybody's talking about it. It's from our shir. You're coming. It's from your shir. We brought 2 boxes. It sold out right away. We brought some more because people asked. They needed and there wasn't enough. Please help yourself in the back of this medish. Course price for $20. The new safe of Rabbi Smith, Halacha L'maisa, from the shir that you're coming every week. The Sikkim is in 2 minutes. Amen. 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 Yehei Shmei Rabbim.
The Yashiv has a shadow.
30 seconds. How long do you do?
The Yashiv.
Good book from Atzma. Come on, come to do Wochen of Apish and the Holy Three. And they say over here, it's not the Bechas Hanua, it's the Bechas Shvach Alayai.
Right. Mela. Yeah, good no.
It's not the Bechas Hanua. It's
Mela what?
Mila, it's a chiyuv by itself. It's not.
Rabbi Hefsek.
Rabbi Hefsek. You make because it's a bechas like a bechas a mitzvah. The whole thing is you make a bucha on yain not because you drink it.
Part of the mitzvah is not a hefsek. It has to. But you can't give hefsek in the
That's part of it.
The Mashal saying a good job is a good devach. No one says it's a good devach. It's taka more of a bechas.
No, you want to be machmir, not Michael.
It's part of the bucha. It's.
What's the other minute that you shouldn't be able to?
This is the mitzvah.
If you machma, make it.
You want to be machmir.
It's the part of the mitzvah. It's not because you drink it.
Even for me.
Yeah, the bucha, yeah.
Even for the listener.
The bucha is not on a hand.
I don't listen to
It's not because I'm going to drink from the wine.
It's just heavy.
It's not because I'm going to drink from the wine.
These things that are so negay.
I think he writes the ladies can't hold himself in, right? That's what it says there, no? He saw the chiva. He said
That's the ladies. People can't.
People can't hold themselves in.
Ladies.
Okay.
Very good. Yeah. This one with the times the other said. That's what I'm talking about. Those are say that. So it's not so bad.
I didn't die. It's always
We're still on the.
The Yashiv.
It's always interesting.
You know, this is on. What's it? What's it called? What is this called? This,
Technology.
what's this called? Go on now.
No way. How can I shouldn't have said that. How do I?
But obviously it's not. You see, everything is.
It's live. It's live. Hey, Simcha, we should keep going.
Kodesh Chiv is really Yashiv. How about this?
You know what live stream had work? It's really about it. But on live stream.
It's easy to come here to do that for some people.
Why?
I'm saying, for all the people.
Everything else under the sun. Speak the Mila. Yeah. I don't know how to pronounce it. Okay.
You said you forgot the Muslim.
What happened with the V? With the V shall yesterday?
I believe in the Shmeitim.
You're a Shemayim. I think you shout that no one else does. Okay, Simcha.
I saw that meaning by a bris that after he makes the boy pray gufa, he drinks in bubbles. They have that.
Yeah? And by Siv Gilishana.
I didn't see. I can't tell you. I saw by a bris.
Mama's drink?
No, he licks. He licks.
Yeah?
Wait, in Gad, but by a bris, I saw lick.
No, but Bowen Fish they have a kid because of Yom Kippur. Kodesh Fish about Shabbos Shabbos Yom Kippur.
No.
They have kids for Shabbos Shabbos. They're a kid. That's a whole year they have a kid.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, they always tell a kid.
We're still live. All right. Rabbi Yakov.
I'm having your mind and you'll drink.
Yeah.
It's about this year, Motzi Yom Kippur. So the Nalala want to say Shli Momo. You saw that Chiva?
Yechon Seifer.
Yechon Seifer, yeah.
He says it's a hefsek.
It's a back.
It's a cholam. There you go.
Rabbi Smith is going to give a sikkim on today's share in a few seconds. Please find your seats. 1 second.
Good. But that's more because we're having a team. Just a short summary we learned today. Regarding Havdalah, we see it's an unusual package, the unusual combination that's unprecedented. The Yikar Havdalah, of course, is the Baruch HaMavdil, and every person has to be careful to hear every word of Baruch HaMavdil, otherwise you're not Yoitza. But we do have, as part of the package, the Yayin, the Baruch of Gofen, Ner, and Besamim. There's Gofen, Ner, and Besamim. And the question, which is the sugya for today, is how do we identify these brachas? Are they part of Havdalah? Is it a hefsek if you answer amen to these brachas? So we basically came out the following. If a person made Havdalah on water or a drink instead of wine, he was not Yoitzik Havdalah. Just like he made Kiddush on Chaymitz, on soda, he's not Yoitza, because you need a kais of wine. So both Kiddush and Havdalah needs the kais of wine. More so, if you had a kais of wine and it spilled out before he was able to drink it, he would have to repeat both Kiddush and Havdalah. So we see that the wine or grape juice is a chelik choshev of the Kiddush and Havdalah. Leidach Gisa, if he skipped the Gofen, drank without saying a Gofen, most places hold Yoitza. So that gives us somewhat of an insight that the wine is absolutely necessary. Drinking the wine is also absolutely necessary, but the Gofen is not ma'akiv. The Mavdil spoke out before he drank the wine, or the Mekadesh spoke out before he drank the wine. The Kiddush was good, was not pasul, but he has to repeat the Gofen. So then he has the full package. If one of the listeners spoke out before Kiddush or Havdalah, they were Yoitza, the Kiddush or Havdalah, they cannot drink the wine with his bracha. If one of the listeners missed Gafen of Kiddush or Havdalah, I'm talking about the night Kiddush, then it was Yaitza, as long as the Kiddush was said ala kais and he connected to a Kiddush ala kais. The same is true with Havdalah. Chatchila, one should hear the whole Kiddush or Havdalah. Listeners saying Gut Devach should not be done until the Mavdil drank at least Amalei Lugmav. Some say it's enough with a Kolshu, but wait until the Mavdil drank. Some are making it with a drop, but basically you should not drink, you should not talk until the Mavdil drank the Kais of Havdalah. The Steichemet says you should not say other Haisafais even if they have a Shaykhis to what you're doing. Don't add the Neschais, because even the Shaimim are not supposed to talk. The B'diavad, if he spoke, Yoytza, B'chatchila, avoid any type of talking. The Mavdil should not answer Amen to the Shaimim's bracha, whether it's Besamim or Ner, and certainly not Baruch Hu Baruch Shmai. But as we said, the Shaimim could answer Amen to their brachas or the Mavdil's brachas. In fact, even Baruch Hu Baruch Shmai might be mutter, even though that's not the minig. But the Yevid, if the Mavdil said Amen to someone else's bracha of some maner, according to Rav Vozna, he would not have to repeat the Havdalah, the Gafen. Some lick the wine, but it's not our minig, but this way the bracha was chal. But the Yevid, if the Shaimim spoke before Hamavdil, in other words, the phone was ringing, they would pick up the phone, that would also not passel their Havdalah. If you say a bracha on Besamim at the end of Havdalah, wait until the Mavdil is finished. Try to say it before he drinks to make it the full Havdalah ala kais. It's better then than after he drinks. Kiddush is basically the same thing, except that we said you should wait until the Mekadosh drank a Malay Lugmav. And we're left with this fascinating question. If someone's minig is not to make their own bracha of some maner, but he was unable to get the some maner until after Havdalah, so it's Yitachan, he should not repeat the bracha, but one thing for sure, make sure to hear the entire Birchas HaMavdil.
Talks, then he could for sure make.
And the one thing I wanted to mention, we said that Te'im is mutter before Havdalah. Te'im is not mutter before Havdalah. We meant licking a drop of the wine would not even be Te'ima, that would be Te'ima b'yadai, which some say is not a hefsek, is not a mitzvah.
But if he talks, he could actually make up some. If he talks after the Havdalah,
I understand.
he could make a bracha. Yeah, but
Yeah.
Rabbi Sai, the Sefer is a beautiful Sefer, Rabbi Smith. Here's the Sefer. There's only a few left. We want to thank again the Santa family for dedicating the Sefer. Tremendous chus. It's going, everybody's buying it, Baruch Hashem. Tiskar Mitzvahs. The next shir is 1 o'clock through Rabbi Present.
And it's not tikkun money. Not a cut a vegetable in half. You cut it to make sure it's right? Oh, good. Thank you. This is responsibility. He comes from also different part of the world. Yeah. I mean, you too. When you go back there.